following announcement has been paid for by the Celtic World Order.
Hello there, welcome back to Celtic World Order. As always, I'm Steve O'Matt. It's an absolute pleasure for you to be joining us back here on the channel again today for another special video, because this time not only have I got the OG, my bearded brother Paddy boy beside me, we've also got a very special guest. Don't need any introductions. You can see the name, you can see the face. It is, of course, Mr. Rudi Vata. We're here to talk to him about his time at Celtic, football, and a wee bit of everything of life in general. Rudi, good morning to you. Thank you for taking the time out your day to join us. How are you?
Good morning, guys. Fantastic. Beautiful day today in Scotland. So we're going to enjoy the day because the sun looks very bright and very healthy.
Yeah, a bit of a rarity with some of the weather I've been having lately, but as I say, some fresh faces despite the early hour of the morning, and whatever time it is that you may be joining us to watch this video, it's a warm welcome to you once again. If you're a follower, if you're a subscriber, thank you. If you're new, it's warm welcome to you as well. Just make sure that you show the support to ourselves, show your support to Rudi, give this video a like, give it a thumbs up, and follow and subscribe to the channel. So Rudi, as we say, it's a warm welcome to yourself, and looking forward to talking away to yourself. Obviously, we're aware that you have recently released your book, and it covers a lot about Paddy's eras. Beautiful model, as modelled by Paddy there. Your book covers a lot about yourself personally, of course it does. It covers the football aspects. It also covers a lot about your time in Albania and how you actually got to being where you are today. It's quite a unique story. There's a lot of trials and tribulations in there. And one thing taken away from the book is you're certainly a gentleman, you're a fighter, and you're a hard worker.
Well, the book describes, obviously, is story of my life. You know, I believe everybody has a story to say and to tell, and in my life I had so many different situations, different experiences, and that's maybe how the book ended up being a little bit unique and different, because when you are born in a normal country with normal rules and regulation, with equal rights, and when everything is fair, I think it's completely normal to achieve something. But for me, it was something that I had. First of all, I had to earn my freedom to get this opportunity, and to use the opportunity that the freedom is going to bring me to build up my future. So I had to run away from my country. Unfortunately, I was born in a country where freedom was not allowed for the normal people. And as we know, as I believe that freedom is everything in life, you know. So without freedom, you cannot grow, you cannot develop, you cannot become the person that God sends you in earth to become. So I had to fight for that freedom. First, I had to make that decision. It's a tough decision, because you end up in a world that you never been before. But it's a question of how you prepared to go through those difficulties, through the pain, through the challenges, and obviously build up a reputation to become a good human being, first of all, because you have to be accepted from the society, and obviously you have to perform and to build up that kind of fitness level to earn your place in a team that you're going to be participating. So it's tough, it's difficult, but it's possible, because many people done it in the past, and I am one of them. That obviously I had to do what I had to do to get to fulfill my dream, you can say, you know, because I believe that every young...
Sorry, Rudi, you're saying that there about the dream and getting away from the dictatorship in Albania. Was football always the dream? Was that always the way out for you? Was that always the passion that you wanted to progress towards? Yeah.
I believe every child is born with a talent, some kind of talent, you know. And me, I believe I understood from early age. I was born to play football. I remember I was always in the streets of my hometown in Schroeder in bare feet playing with older guys, with plastic balls. And that was something that I loved doing, was some kind of passion about it that obviously it becomes, if you love it so much, more or less you become obsessed. There are so many, there are three different kind of things that appear to you in life. You could be interested, you could be committed, but you become also obsessed. And interested, I was interested to play basketball, I was interested to do the Greek Roman wrestling, and then I committed to football. But then at the end, I became obsessed with the game. So it was no way I was going to lose in this game, because when
Yeah.
you become obsessed, you're going to give more than 100% every day to get there. And as a young kid, I remember my dream was to become a national team player of Albania, because when we were young, maximum we could dream was to play for the national team. We
Yeah.
were not allowed to have a dream beyond that kind of that border, because was not allowed to dream. I could not dream that one day I can become Celtic player. That was not allowed for us
Mhm.
in Albania. Maximum I could dream was to become a national team player of my country, which
Yeah.
was the highest honor. And I believe, and I think every day I woke up with that kind of idea. I woke up with that kind of feeling. And every day I was working towards that kind of direction. So more or less, you become, in some way, you become programmed. You know what's going to happen. And every day you build up slowly. And
So,
one day you find yourself in the place you dream to be.
so Rudi, obviously you've said there and you've painted this picture, as we know, the times in Albania when you were growing up and obviously as a sort of young adult was completely different to where we are today in terms of how things are there. You said it was hard to dream at times, and obviously football's a universal language and it's an escape for a lot of people. In terms of your exposure to football out with Albania growing up and being younger, I know that Rudi Kroll, for example, was someone that you says was a big influence on you, but what were the sort of inspirations? Was it quite easy for you to see European and British football televised? Did you get exposure to that? Or was it simply just in that bubble of your own country?
Look, to be about Rudi Kroll, I remember was 1978, and Holland was doing very well in the World Cup, and I didn't know who Rudi Kroll was. But in our area where we lived was one family who had the black and white television, and because the Albanian TV station was showing the games in television, me and my friends, we gathered together, we went to watch the football, and from that kind of situation, people started to call me kind of giving me that kind of name, Rudi Kroll, Rudi Kroll. And I like that because they were calling me Rudi Kroll, and I was playing football with them, and they were calling me Rudi Kroll. And that is some kind of inspiration I got, of course. And I remember I became a Dutch fan because with Rezenbrink, Neskens, and Rene van der Kerkhoff, from early age, I became a Dutch fan, and I always looked forward to hear about Holland, to find out what their players are doing, who is their manager, and how good they were doing. And eventually I went to the football school. And in the football school, we learned about the history of European football, world football. We learned about the World Cups, about teams who won the first World Cup, who won the first Champions League. So you become more aware of those facts, and then you become extra motivated all the time. But I was very hungry to develop also to understand who the best players are, who are the best clubs, who are the best teams, the most successful people in the game, and so on. And I learned a lot from Johan Cruyff and from the classic football of 1974 and 78. So those kind of stories inspired me, and obviously I got some kind of motivation as a kid that was necessary to learn and improve and feel like I want to be part of that environment one day,
Yeah.
and so that's more or less how it happened.
So, I mean, you make your way, you do eventually make your way into football, and we know you as being a right back and being a defender. Now, it was quite interesting when we speak to people like this. We spoke to one of your former colleagues, Peter Grant, recently, and we actually found out about his footballing story where we knew him as a midfielder. He was actually a striker growing up. Was there any differences in terms of you? Have you always been, when you were growing up, when you were finding your way in football, becoming a pro, were you always a defender, or was there a secret Rudi Vata that we didn't know in there that was an attack-minded, or even a goalkeeper or something different?
Well, it's funny enough you're asking me that, because in 1987 I was playing for under 18s of Albania against Holland. It was March 1987. Until then, I always played as a number 9. So I was a striker, and I was the best goal scorer with under 18s in Albanian Football League. And somehow the manager of under 18s, he kind of called me in his office, and he says, "You're going to play against Holland as a libero, as a center back." At the time, we were playing with two center halves and one libero, and I was going to play as a libero, and for me it was very, very strange, because I say, how can I become a libero when I am a center forward? And he's just told me one simple advice: you just remember the moves you made as a striker. You have to do the opposite things as a libero now, he says. And I ended up being the man of the match. We drew the game against Holland under 18s 0-0, and I was man of the match. And from this moment, the Dynamo scouts, they saw me and they made a plan with me, and they approached me straight away, actually. And the following season, I went to play for Dynamo Tirana, which was one of the top clubs in the country. And that's where my career as a sweeper started. And also, when I arrived at Celtic under Liam Brady, I was also recognized as a sweeper, but somehow they found for me a place as a right back, because at the time the system with libero in Scotland was no used, and I played right back and right winger. Only game I played as a center back for Celtic was a testimonial game against Manchester United, Paul McStay's testimonial. And I played against Andy Cole and Paul Scholes, and so I had a good game. Me and Malky Mackay, I believe, we played in center of defense. So
Yeah, I remember watching that, actually.
But my whole career, I was a center back or a number 6. So in Germany, I played as a number 6. And national team, I played mostly as a sweeper or as a number 6. So in Scotland, I played as a right back or right wing. The only reason I played in that position, I think, because I became very fit, and I was more or less very versatile, going up and down, but that was not my natural position. But I had to play, because obviously the managers choose to play me there. I wanted to play with the team, and I accepted any kind of decision they had to make, because at the end of the day, you are a soldier of the game, you are a servant. They ask you to play whatever position, and I played. I feel a little bit I could have maybe been given that opportunity to prove myself if I am good enough as a center back, and but I was not given that opportunity. Somehow nobody gave me that opportunity.
Well, you've spoke obviously.
Before, haven't we? We've said that players growing up, guys like ourselves, me and Steve, we're Celtic fans. if we were given the opportunity to play for Celtic, we would have played any position that they told us. It wouldn't have mattered if it was goalkeeper or striker or whatever. You would just go, yes, yes, no problem. And the way I got the feeling, like we spoke to a few people, and Didi Agat mentioned it to us, and he said, at that time, it's your job. It's what you're trained to do. Now, people in jobs reevaluate roles all the time, and that's essentially what you've done there. You've reevaluated a role. You've played as a striker, so you know how the striker moves. So stepping into that position wasn't as much of a transition as what it should have been, and I think that's really interesting to hear. So going forward from that, you were playing for Albania, which I'd imagine, obviously, as you said before, was a massive achievement for yourself. It's something that you'd been looking forward to all your life. How did your first call-up come about, and on your life from then?
Well, I was a Dinamo Tirana player, and obviously I was 20 years old. And at the time, Albanian FA, they employed the East German coach, which was suited to them because East Germany was also a communist country, you know. And the first game I played was in 1990 in Iceland, against Iceland, June 1990. And I believe I was one of the main. Dinamo Tirana was winning the league, was winning the cup, the Super Cup of Albania. I was doing very well as a young man. So it was a transition, and the manager, the new manager, wanted to get rid of the old players. So he invited me in the national team, and that was my first call. But in the meantime, I was feeling that I am ready to become part of the national team at the time, and I was doing well, and I had that self-confidence on me, and I was dominant in Albanian league. I was very dominant, and obviously I had to work very hard to become dominant, because I believe in football, if you try to become just normal, I think you will have difficulties. You'll never fulfill your dreams. So from early on, I was a very hard worker. It's simple as that, you know.
Yeah.
Because I loved the game so much, because I had so much passion and desire. I was ready to give everything for the game, and that's how I built up my life, and that's how I became who I became. Because every situation, good or bad, is a situation you need to manage, you need to deal. You have to become aware of any moments that appear, and that is what you prepare to do as a top professional. And I think discipline was something that was most important thing in my life. I was very disciplined. I was always on time. I was always ready to do extra work. I more or less, you build up that kind of mentality of discipline, then you understand that the good results will come, you know. And in general, I had also that positive attitude, you know. And when you have that positive attitude, I believe the positive results will come.
So, Rudi, can I just ask you, obviously, you mentioned that, you know, the atmosphere and the way things were within your country at the time, particularly before you left in major exodus via France, was challenging to say the least, obviously, for the people, and being sort of more of like a dictatorship situation. How was it being a professional footballer, playing for your country and playing for a professional team in that environment? Because, you know, the likes that we look at, and it's easy for us to look at British and European football who are not in that situation, but essentially pro footballers are looked upon as being treated like kings, like celebrities, where they do have a completely different, you know, day-to-day life from the norm. Was there any difference with you being a pro footballer in your own country against the backdrop for the likes of your family or the regular people, if you will?
It was a big difference, you know. We were privileged, and we had obviously we could have the best food, because of it. We had special treatment, especially when you become a national team player. The FA and the government had special rules that would give you the extra food, the extra vitamins, and so on. You'd have better materials, training materials, so trainers and football boots and so on. They add to those extra things that the other peoples didn't have. Small things, but they made the difference. And we were looked as gods, more or less. We were treated and we were admired because we entertained people as well. The stadiums were completely full. People had not much to do during the weekends. They had nothing to do. The stadiums were completely full, and doesn't matter for which team you play, people, they were coming in the stadium, and we were performing for them, and we were like special. We were treated as special. To be honest, from the people, we were their idols and their heroes, and obviously, you feel that and you feel good because you feel the respect they show to you, and you feel that they admire you, and it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling.
Yeah. And obviously, you say, it's just to touch on your journey to eventually how you managed to work your way over to Celtic. Of course, the story's known that you were in France with the national team. You weren't to be playing and you made your way out the stadium, stuffed some money into your pockets, the clothes in your back, and left the Parc des Princes and presented in at a local police station looking for asylum. And ultimately, that was your passageway out of Albania. A very brave, a very bold move to do, I'm sure, given the backdrop. You would have worried and fear about the potential repercussions for yourself, for your family, etc. But ultimately, as you say at the start there, and you've always said about, making your own luck, if you will, finding your own way, making things happen, taking decisive action. That must have been absolutely huge for you to do. And are you able to just give us a wee sort of bit of insight in terms of what that felt like and ultimately what pushed you to doing that? When you were walking out that stadium, what was going through your mind and what was the sort of end goal for
But
you?
look, I remember like now because I made that decision last day, I believe, because I found out that my brother was fit and healthy in Italy, and that was I had a clear picture after. I had to make a decision. I had with me $50 I believe, in my pocket, a T-shirt, a jacket, a pair of trainers, and a pair of jeans, and my football boots in a sports bag. That's all I had with me. And there is a fear factor, and there is some kind of insecurity you feel always, and there is lots of emotion they go through because you're playing. 1 minute you are playing at Parc des Princes and you are there in the same field with Papin, Cantona, Laurent Blanc, Deschamps, Frank Souzet, Platini, the manager, and the next minute you are going to a police station and you are going to ask for political asylum, and that makes the picture changes completely. It's like you're going into a dream. You wake up next morning in a refugee camp among all the refugees that applied for the same status as I did in France, and you question yourself that is that the right decision? Is that you expect, and you don't get any special treatment because you played against Papin or Cantona. Doesn't matter. 48 hours after, you are treated the same as anybody else there in that refugee camp. And that hits you. That hits you because not straight away you get what you're looking for, because there is a procedure. You have to go through an application, you have to go through an interview, you have to wait for so many weeks for the answers, and that's what I had to go through. And your head is full of question marks, and then most important thing is not to lose your fitness. What do you do to keep up with fitness? Because you made that decision to become a professional football player in France. But if you lose that fitness, then when your opportunity will come to go for a trial, be fit enough. So what do you do to keep that fitness? So I had to make a plan. I had to wake up 3, 4 in the morning and do some training, do some runs, and because my body was feeling like I had lots of energy and I could not waste my time. So as I say, I was too determined, and I never allowed myself to get into that comfort zone and to lose that kind of energy that was important to have. And I kept pushing myself harder and harder every day, trying to self-motivate myself until that moment will arrive. It's a period that not many people can cope in a positive way. Many friends of mine, they gave in. We were 7 of us who left the team.
Yeah.
And eventually only me, I managed to continue to become a national team player after that decision. So 6 other players, they never kicked the ball again for national team, and 4 or 5 of the others, they never kicked a ball after they left the national team. So
wow, that's incredible. It's a huge sacrifice, but ultimately
it shows you that how difficult it was to overcome that situation.
Yeah,
and
no, it's a huge sacrifice for everyone involved there.
I know it feels normal now, but when I think what I had to go through, sometimes I also ask myself, how did you manage to do that? But every day it's a new day. Every day brings different things. So I had to do what I had to do. Honestly, I was when you are young, I believe you can go through pain. You can go because you can take anything. You can take anything, and you believe you are on you never going to die when you're that day. And I believe that doesn't matter how tough it will be, doesn't matter how difficult it will be. It's up to me to keep up with that kind of standard.
I think when you're young, you can be fearless, Rudi, as you're saying, and there's this sense of invincibility. It's about making your own decisions and being decisive. And I think the sacrifice you made there is huge, and ultimately it's paid dividends. I'm sure your fellow colleagues at the time, you say some ended up not playing again, but in the fullness of time, I'm sure that sacrifice that they made, that will have been a right decision for them, and whatever path they went on themselves, they'll feel that they've got just simply by escaping the situation, that would have been worth its weight in gold, regardless of whether it meant that they had to sacrifice playing football or not. Big decisions, but again, it speaks to the big character you are, and you're always continually reiterating, working hard for yourself, making things happen, and showing real resilience. And ultimately, it did paid off, because eventually you get to where, well, we as Celtic fans know you, because the journey is long, it's arduous, but you end up at Celtic in 1992. You touched down at Celtic Park. Now, looking at the Celtic side of things and that move on from everything that you had behind you and how hard it was to get there, from a footballing sense, I want to get a snapshot of the situation at Celtic at the time, because you left a very hard and oppressive and struggle in your homeland. You then move over to Celtic. You're in British football. You signed for Celtic in '92 under Liam Brady, as you said. Now, the environment at Celtic, in terms of how it was for us fans, you'll know yourself, you lived through and played through the sort of sack the board movement. There was a lot of unrest there. It was quite interesting for us. Obviously, your home country, you're saying that it was a struggle where the people in charge weren't all for their people in some cases. It was very oppressive. But in a kind of strange mirroring, the situation at Celtic, for us as fans, we felt that that's what the situation was like at our club. So when you come in and you arrive at Celtic, obviously you'd be thrilled to be joining there. You sign alongside Andy Payton and Stuart Slater. There's a lovely photo there of you looking the part, a fashion icon with that hair there.
Look at the
Mullets
mullet.
were in very much at the time. But
I-
how was it when you arrived at Celtic?
To be honest, when that situation appeared, I was not believing myself, because I was just about to sign in French second tier there, and I was settled in France. The manager of the team liked me, and I was feeling good, because 1.5 year of sacrifices was paying off, and then Celtic appears, and then how can you say that I am not interested, you know? The good thing was that I could speak Italian, because English I could not speak a word at the time, and I managed to get in touch with Liam Brady myself, and he explained to me what has to be done. And I went straight away to Paris with a friend of mine, a Frenchman, who helped me during my time. Celtic, I believe they sent me an invitation letter, and I applied for a visa, and I went straight to Dublin, because the team was in pre-season in Ireland. So that's where I meet with in one of the hotels there, old hotel. I walked in with jeans, long hair. I kind of appeared there, and I could see that the Celtic players were looking at me, looking at in a strange way, because I was like a guy who was not. To be honest, I don't think I fit it with the name, because I was growing up. I had my issues. Was in a new situation that I was not prepared, and I didn't know what to expect. And it felt like completely I walked into an environment that those people, they all had big names. Patty Bonner had just been one of the best goalkeepers in the World Cup. There were characters like Charlie Nicholas there, and then Paul McStay, and all those characters, and you don't understand too much, because if I am honest, I didn't know what's going on with the club, and I could not read the news, and I never read the newspapers, because I didn't understand. My daily routine was go to training, have a good training session, come home, do some extra work again, and that's how I kind of get on with my job. And I could hear those situations are starting to develop, and eventually you face the reality, and everything, it's so turbulence. But I could feel that people still had hope. That was the most important thing. People had
Yeah.
not given, not they never lost hope that some solution will be. They will find a solution. There will be a solution. There is always a solution. And as we know, Fergus McCann then eventually took over, and the solution was found, and things changed for better. I was going through, but was like the story of my life. You know, I had to suffer again. I had to go through those situations, and I had to be part of that environment. I had to understand the past, the present, but I could see the future of the club as well. So, well, for me was a fantastic experience. Tough, was not materialized, was not that I earned a lot of money. I was not looking for the money. I was not looking for materials. I was looking to develop and to grow in that environment with those guys who had been in the game and had learned and had shown that they are top professional guys. So for me, it was a learning curve. Was all about at this period was all about improvement and growing up and developing and becoming part of the club. And thank God I had this opportunity to score against Rangers, which is something that God had planned for me, because as a right back, to score in a free kick like that, it can be one in a million. And then winning the Scottish Cup in '95 was also something that nobody can take away from me. And this is where the things started to get better, and Celtic was from this point started to look forward to the good times. So I was there with good and bad times. I enjoyed every single day, because honestly, the feeling walking at Celtic Park every day was so special. People were so friendly with me, and they were so nice, and they made me feel like I am home, and that's what you need as a young man in a new country.
That's something that we hear quite a lot on here, speaking to players who have played for Celtic, is that sense of family that we seem to bring in. Now, you said there as well about arriving to see the team in Dublin. I read a good thing in your book, and I thought it was quite funny. He said that your fashion sense seemed to amuse them. Like, obviously, you arriving with this mullet and stuff. I believe that was your way of getting away from the time in Albania, obviously, because you had to have a particular haircut and thing back then as well.
Exactly. I wanted to have long hair like Beatles, you know, and in communist times they were not allowed us, they didn't allow us to have that. And then that was some kind of revolt. I wanted to have some revenge, you know. And eventually I realized that it's nothing special anyway. And but the players they were laughing. I had white socks and I had some kind of fashion. They were having a go at me all the time. You know, most of the jokes I could not understand, because how would you understand Peter Grant with his jokes, or Joe Miller or Charlie? You know, they were speaking in their way fast, 150 miles an hour, and they were having fun. But in the meantime, I was also okay with it, because I knew that I am not there to transform myself 100% in a matter of day or two. I knew that it will take time for me to understand, and one day eventually I'll convince them that I deserve to be part of this environment.
You spoke in there as well in the book, and I don't want to give too much of the book away to people. Obviously, go out and buy it. It's an absolutely fantastic read. But you spoke about obviously learning the language of guys like Peter Grant and Joe Miller and trying to catch these things. But you say in it as well that you also learned by watching TV, things like the soaps, like Brookside, Neighbours, Home and Away, things like that.
Brookside, that's how tough it is.
Every day after training, I come home, I see Home and Away, Neighbours, Brookside, and El Dorado. But I always had a book and had a pen, and I will write sentences. You know, every sentence I hear, I write it down. I bring the book to see what does it mean. And so I started to build up the English. But then I walked into the dressing room next morning, and I could not understand a word what they were saying, you know. So then you build up that kind of relationship slowly. Your ear is getting used to the words, and then you improve. When you want to learn, now I understand the Glaswegian better than the Glasgow people, you know, because I also know before they say the word, I know what they're going to say, you know, because. So, but everything is an experience, I say, and as I say, that was a fantastic experience, and that experience with Celtic for 4 seasons, with good and bad and ups and downs, that helped me a lot for the next step in my life, in my career, in my football. So it was a very big one.
Rudi, I mean, at the time at Celtic, there was a lot. Obviously, we were going through something of a dip, if you will, off of the highs, the sort of, you know, earlier years prior to you signing for Celtic, where Celtic were, you know, winning championships regularly, really competing. And I suppose we were in a dip at that stage. There was still a lot of great memories, great football to be had. Even myself growing up in likes of Paddy, yeah, it might not have been rip-roaring successes, but there was still a lot of great players to be watching on show. And there were a lot of top professionals in the team you joined. Obviously, there was like some Mowbray, Boyd, McStage, he says, you know, the maestro's an absolute hero, an icon, one of my personal favourites. John Collins, Charlie Nick. So there was an absolute plethora of fantastic players at the club at the time. It just for one reason or another didn't quite marry up into ultimate results in championships. But in terms of you coming in as a young guy, and you say you've all spoke about the learning and the development and it being a journey. But a great pool of players for you to be around. And how was that level, if you will, of what the talent was like around you versus what you'd previously experienced? And is there anybody in particular that you would say really stood out to you in terms of not only just ability, but also as maybe like a mentor?
Well, I think first of all, I found the training, the way the training was here was so different from France. You know, the training station started with sprints, and because of the cold weather, I don't know. And I could see that first thing we used to do. We used to Peter Grant and the older guys. They used to be on top of the head of the group, and go sprinting. I used to tell to whoever was closer to me, this is not warm up. This is kind of pre-season session. Is you cannot start with such a high tempo. But then you get used to it. You understand that this is a different intensity here, and obviously, even Liam told me this. Your heart has to beat twice faster than Europe to play in Scotland, and I had to do. Um, Extra training after every session to build up that kind of fitness level that I need, that was required to play in this league. And to be honest, my body started to react in a strange way, and I felt like what's going on, because I was living on my own in the hotel. I had no friends, and I was shaking every night because the body was going through a period that was, the changes were happening in my system, and I was shaking. And I was thinking also that I was good in France. I didn't have that kind of problem. My heart was not pumping out of my chest like this, you know, and I was. But then you think, here we go, you are in Celtic now. You want to be part of this club. So
Yeah.
maybe your heart can stop working because of the training, but that's what you're supposed to do, you know, if you want to be part of this. And then I was prepared, whatever happened. As long as I am part of that group, then I accept anything. Even if I die, I die. That's life. So to be honest, as a young man, again, being on your own, having to go through those stages, you know, I think everything it affects you, but I accept it, what is to be done, and I had to do. And after 2 3 weeks, my body started to get normal, and then I became so fit. Then that's the reason they choose me to play as a right winger or as a right back, because I was up and down that lane all the time. I was very fit, and maybe I became one of the top 3 fit players. And working with those guys, John Cole was a top professional. Paul McStay was a great leader. His example in the dressing room, the way he behaved, the way he led the team, you know, full of pride. That was kind of a lot to learn. Tom Boyd in the same way, you know. Charlie Nicholas, you could see his skills, you could see the talent he had, you know. And you grow up in, because I was training every day with those guys. I was playing against them in games, even though when I was not playing for the first team, I was learning and improving, and my fitness was top all the time. And of course, then later on, Andy Tom arrived, Pierre Van Hooydonk, George Cadet. So the better quality players, they added value to the team, and you work with all those top professionals again, and you improve yourself and you learn a lot from them, and that's the name of the game, you know.
Yeah.
It's, for me,
You
was
talk about those arrivals there, Rudi. That obviously the top I'm wearing today is from that era. Those guys arriving, for me, that was the pinnacle of my Celtic growing up. Obviously, guys like yourself. I mean, it was incredible seeing this impact that these guys had. Now, you again after that received another call up to the Albania squad as well, and this time you got to represent them as a captain. How did that feel, and what sort of impact did that have on your career going forward?
fantastic impact, because was 95 I became a captain of national team. Until 2002 I was a captain for 7 years. So playing for Celtic, my reputation and my name was quite big in my country, to be honest. And I was proud of it, you know. I was proud, and I always kind of showed that kind of pride I had, because I was part of a big, massive club, and I was one of the few maybe who was working and playing for a big club like Celtic, and that was my pride.
Yeah. No, it's good to see it coming back from essentially escaping from national. When you've left that, you maybe perhaps at that time had thought there's no road back. So a real full circle moment, and obviously bursting with pride, being a captain as well. And obviously Celtic, as you say, went a long way to letting you get back to that destination. And just to finish up in your time at Celtic, obviously you came in under Liam Brady. It was a real period of transition. We obviously saw the sack the board movement. We changed. We did, as you rightly says, Fergus McCann came in, revolutionised the club. I think at the time fans still didn't appreciate it, but now when we look back, I think a lot of people realise the impact, and that was really truly the winds of change. But another big thing that marked a near change at Celtic was Tommy Burns as well as the manager. And ultimately, as you say, leading ourselves to the Scottish Cup win there. There's yourself the Scottish Cup. And that for myself was one of my, and I'm sure Paddy, first real tangible memory as a young Celtic fan growing up. You know, that was the first trophy that I had vivid memories of seeing Celtic lifting. And I remember celebrating that day. I actually ended up in hospital because I broke my arm that exact same day celebrating. So much so that was a side story. But in terms of that team and that transition to get to that stage of winning silverware and really, you know, marking the development of the squad, how was the transition for you as a player? As you say, you've mentioned the guys that came in, but from the Liam Brady era to Fergus McCann, to know the legendary Tommy Burns, what was it like? Was there a feeling of change in the air that things were improving? And how, more importantly, how was it under working Tommy Burns? Because, you know, he's someone that we will hold in the highest regard, a true, utter legend of the club, and someone that I felt it was fantastic getting that Scottish Cup. Great memories, but I really thought Tommy Burns deserved and could have achieved more at that time.
100%. But look, for me, when Liam Brady left, I was hurt. I was badly hurt because I had a fantastic relationship. And then Lou Macari took over.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's a new manager. You have to convince this guy, you know, he's a new man. He comes with English coaches and he has a new ideas and he has to develop the team. He has to, obviously, he has to create his own environment with his own ideas. And soon as he started to play me, as soon as I earned my place in the first team, funny enough is that we were playing Kilmarnock. I was playing as a right wing, and first minute I broke my arm against Kilmarnock, and the manager was Tommy Burns. The manager of Kilmarnock was Tommy Burns at the time with Billy Stark. So, and after that game, I had a contract extension offer, and Celtic went to play Man United, I believe, was Mark Hughes' testimonial. I went to Old Trafford with a broken arm, and after that I signed a new 2 years extension with the club. And but in July of that season, Lou Macari left and Tommy Burns took over, and I still had the plaster on, and we had a meeting with Tommy. And I was very kind of happy that when I hear him talking, the passion he had about the team and the club and the vision he had for the future, I was so happy. And I had the meeting with him straight away. And I said, Gaff, I'm looking forward to have that training with you. And soon as I'm fit, I'll be ready for you, and you can kind of give me that opportunity that I deserve. But when I had that experience, I believe that Tommy had other ideas, you know, and somehow when I became fit, he never used me too much. And he actually says, Rudi, he was honest with me. He says, I'd prefer to bring my own people here, and you have to maybe go and play with Liam, because Liam was at Brighton at the time, you know. I went down to Brighton. I I had 1 week sessions with Brighton, and I had to see the environment. It was beautiful areas, but was not the same kind of feeling I had, and I was very sad to think that I'm going to leave the club. You know, I came back from Brighton. I says to Liam, I cannot leave Celtic. I feel like I have to fulfill something there, and I told Tommy that I am going to stay at Celtic. I says I'm going to work hard as I can, and you maybe one day I can convince you to give me that chance. You know, he says, "Up to you, young man. It's up to you to show me. It's up to you to do whatever. But I have my clear kind of ideas in my head. You know." And I had to work so hard for such a long period until one night, out of nowhere, he called me in the office and he says, "You're going to play tonight. Are you ready?" Because that's the way it was. We had to report at Celtic Park before the game. Every time before the game, we had to report as a team, as a unit, and then he picks up the players who's going to play and the subs. And I was not aware that I was going to play. And he played me straight away as a right back. And against Kilmarnock, again, against the team, I broke my arm. And I was playing against Black, I believe, a young left back of Kilmarnock. And I was best man the night. And then was a semi-final against Hibernian at Ibrox.
Yep.
And again, I had a fantastic game. And then the second semi-final. So I started to obviously to convince everybody, and Tommy was very happy, you know, and was a moment you could feel like you are a very important part of the club, you know, and I felt that he also he believed a lot in God, and he saw that I was working so hard, and he saw my determination, my mentality, and I obviously I paid back the faith they put on me, you know, because at this period of time I had very, very good kind of performances against Rangers, and then until I dislocated my shoulder against Paris Saint-Germain at Celtic Park, I was doing very well, you know, because the following that season we won the cup. We played Paris Saint-Germain in Cup Winners' Cup, as
right.
we know, and in 44th minute, I think, in the return game at Celtic Park, I dislocated my shoulder. So, but again, Tommy he had this passion, this energy, the speeches, the love he had for the club was very unique, because he was true Celtic man. He had Celtic kind of all over him, and he gave everything for Celtic, and for sure he had a lot of good ideas. The football he wanted to play was real good football, and obviously he got the reward of winning that trophy. He could have got more, but in life sometimes you not always get what you kind of deserve. But I am glad I had those experiences, and I had this experience with Tommy, because there were good moments, bad moments, as I say again, but we remained good friends, you know, no hard feelings. And even after I stopped playing football, I used to meet up a lot with him. He went to Reading, actually, as a manager. He wanted to sign me at Reading. And one of the agents, Scottish main guys, who was his agent, he contacted me. "Would you come to Reading?" I says, "I will not come now, because I was still hurt with this leaving Celtic, and I was not even considering to go to any other team at the time, you know." So it was some kind of love affair I had, and I was really hurt, really hurt, you know, when I left the club, because I was feeling home, and I got to meet so many friends, and then, but again, that's what life brings you. You have to move on. You have to heal your wounds, and you have to continue to develop, because that's the only way forward.
Rudi, what would you say, and to sum up your time around Celtic? Obviously, we can, you know, bookmark it with a trophy, which is obviously going to be something that's memorable. But in terms of your time at Celtic, what is your outstanding memory, your best memory? You mentioned at the start, obviously the free kick and a 3-0 win against Rangers. Now, as you'll know yourself, wins against Rangers were few and far in between. So for us to go on, that day and win 3-0, go from Van Hooijdonk was Rogue G, and then you capped it off with a beautiful low free kick around the wall into the keeper's left. A great win. And for some people, they seem to think that when they score a goal in a derby match, it's cements you at Celtic. Not necessarily saying that's your moment, but what was your fondest memory of your time at Celtic? What's the thing that sticks out to you?
To be honest, my first thing is this picture with Andy Payton, and that is the most important thing. When I signed that contract and when I became part of Celtic Football Club, that was the most happiest moment I had in my football career, I would say. And again, scoring that goal against Rangers, it's a special feeling, because it it's different. You can be happy for many things. But that kind of moment you cannot buy. And every day, as I say, I worked towards good things, and I always believe that I can achieve something. So not giving in difficult situation was part. It became very important part of my football career and my life. And as I say, I had great relationship with the fans, because that was very important to me, to earn the respect of the fans, to earn the respect of the people I was working every day. So when you earn that respect, and and you feel that you are respected, that is fantastic feeling. Today, I still live in Scotland. I still have lots of friends here, and I feel that kind of energy, that I am part of this community, and I feel like home, and that's is something that I build up through those moments, and that's the best part of my life.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. And obviously, you leave Celtic, as you say. His life after Celtic's different. You've through a couple of different clubs. Obviously, there was Apple, Limassol. You'd have very fruitful, and I believe it was one of your most fondest times was your period in Germany. But funny how things come around, because it wasn't too long, and you eventually did work your way back to Scotland. You came back, you had a short stint at St Johnstone. It was actually another familiar face. It was Billy Stark that brought you there. Just to quickly touch on that and finish up with your sort of time around that. What was it like a different world coming back, playing in Scottish football when you were at St Johnstone versus when you first were at Celtic? What was it like for you coming back to Scotland to play for a different club against a completely transformed, different Celtic? What was that like for you? Was it surreal at times coming back?
Well, I was 34 at the time, so when I came back from Japan, we had is that winter break you get in Japan. The season finishes in November there, end of November. So I for Christmas 2003 I came to Scotland, because my contract expired in Japan. So I had since '92 I had bought my house in Scotland. So I had a house where I had obviously my wife, and we had the first boy, Rowan, and we had our house here. So we came to spend our Christmas period here. And then I got in touch with Billy Stark, and he says, I can give you some training facilities to stay fit there at St Johnson. And I drove up and down every day to Perth, and I thought obviously Billy was very good with me, and he says, I would like you to sign here, Rudi, and see if you like it and take it from there. So that's how it all happened. I stayed with St Johnson. Was St Johnson different club, different energy. The passion of the fans, they were not the same. you could see that I could not improve in that environment anymore, you know. And actually,
Yeah.
I left Scotland in '96 and I came back in 2004 after 8 seasons abroad, where I felt that that I have improved also, because in Bundesliga I worked with lots of good people and serious people, and I improved a lot. I think in Bundesliga I improved a lot as also as a human being. In German environment I improved a lot, you know. And when I came back, I felt that I am now becoming 35, and I was not enjoying the game anymore. The game was always back to front. The small clubs, you could see the difference between a big club who has the potential to be a part of the Champions League and a normal club who just swim among the small fishes, you know. So and that was not for me, and that's what's happened. I lost the passion after, because when I woke up and I went there and I cannot I saw that I cannot improve anymore and I cannot learn anything anymore. I thought maybe better to just call it a day, you know. And especially my wife fell pregnant after that period with St. Johnson. I had an opportunity to move abroad again, to go to Cyprus again, but because of Rocco was now developing in her tummy, I thought we decided to stay here and start and build life after football, because there is a journey after football, and new responsibilities and new stages of your life you go through, and you learn again and you become a father, and that's how life works, you know. So
Sure. Yeah.
It's funny you should bring that up then, Rudi, because also it goes full circle, doesn't it? You spoke about Rocco being born there and then being a football player who played for Celtic. What sort of passion and what did it mean to your family on that day when Rocco finally signed on the books of Celtic?
to be honest, I could see Rocco. He was meant since he was a little boy. He was so different, and even everywhere in his school, in his primary school, everywhere you could feel like, and that he's going to be something special in the game, you know. And he was signed. He was in a team here called Mill United, I believe, in Hamilton. And obviously, my wife was taking him every day there to training, and I never wanted to go and knock in Celtic doors and say my boy can play for you. I says you go and learn and earn, and if the Celtic scouts will recognize that you have something special, they'll identify you and they'll bring you there. So that's what's happened. It was all natural. The scouts, they identified him. They called him at Celtic. He went there for a trial. He stayed 4 or 5 or 6 weeks. They signed him. And from 7 years old, obviously, he was at Celtic. You could see that. For us was obviously every day was special, because the boy was growing in that environment. He was developing. He was improving. He was doing the things. He was getting recognized. So fantastic for me. I think another dream fulfilled. Not completely full, but because of my boy, he wore that jersey. He was there. He showed his characteristics, his character, his commitment, and everything. I think it's been a beautiful journey, and my life in Scotland has been very amazing, you know.
Yeah. So see with Rocco, obviously we know he's now moved on. He's at Watford. As you say, he came through the youth squad at Celtic. He was one of the major standouts, one of the bright sparks of the B-side. I believe he had 28 goals playing for the B-side, and certainly from us as fans looking down the sort of ranks at Celtic, you're always looking to try and identify the next bright young youth talent who could break into that team, who could make an impact, who could be, you know, for example, your next Aidan McGeady, for example. You know, even guys like Mikey Johnson could be the next one to make that step up. For one reason or another, it didn't seem to translate as much as we as fans sitting there. You know, I think universally there's a lot of fans, including myself, who thought Rocco should have featured a lot more, that he could have been brought on, he could have been offered more chances. And I think one of the things that we as fans are often frustrated about is there seems to be lacked perceived pathway for young guys like Rocco to cement their place and get involved in the first team squad. Are you able to give any insight in your thoughts or your reading of how things were for him? Do you feel that he would have been ready to make that step up, you know, around about the time when he was featuring on the bench prior to leaving? Did you feel that he had the tools and the capability at that exact time to stay at Celtic and become a first teamer? Or do you think that the club maybe could have done more to help guys like him to get into the squad?
Well, it's again, it's a situation that whatever I say now, it doesn't make any difference. You know, I tried my best to work alone to convince Celtic that you should not allow Rocco to leave. You should you should analyze, because in football two things are very important: quality and mentality. You know, if you have those two, I think you have a great chance to go right to the top. You know, and the quality, nobody can say that Rocco didn't have quality. In my opinion, he's been recognized as one of the brightest talents in Europe, not from the Scottish scouting system, but from one of the best schools of football, Italian Serie A clubs. They've been looking at his situation since he was 14, 15. And he was approached by Roma when he was 16. He was approached by Celtic had an offer in the table, a lot of good money to be paid for Rocco when he was 16. But Rocco was not ready to move, and Celtic was not going to allow Rocco. And I think that was the best thing at this period of time. I always wanted to find out what those Italian Serie A clubs see on Rocco, and I had to go and see most of the Italian Serie A clubs myself. And all the clubs, they've shown me a technical project, how they are going to work with him and how they're going to build him up to become a Champions League standard player. And that amazed me, because those clubs, they don't even have the rights to own Rocco, but they already had a project for him. And I spoke to Celtic, and I say, and I met Ange before he left, and I asked Ange, I says, what is the technical project you have for Rocco? And Ange says, just leave it to me. And believe you me, he says, Rocco, he'll get there, because he should not be leaving Celtic. You know, as a father, I wanted to protect the future of my boy, and I wanted always
certainly.
Celtic to have the technical projects, same as the other clubs were having. But he was a Celtic player. He was owned by Celtic, and I could not understand how come those clubs, they are prepared to pay over £1 million to get him there, and to work towards that kind of that goal they had to make him a top quality, top class player. So those clubs, they all had the project. That's why they were ready to invest on Rocco, you know. And I found it a bit difficult to understand that how come Celtic are not recognizing this situation, you know, because when you think you prepare yourself to become a Champions League player, first of all, you need to build up that Champions League mentality, but in the same time, you have to have the qualities to perform in Champions League and to compete. And Rocco's qualities, in my opinion, even now in Watford, they recognize he's got elite qualities. And also Watford has a project with him, and the whole club is working towards to build up Rocco to become that player. So it's a question of being organized, having that that vision, and you need to have people, and you need to have the passion to build up young boys. It's very
Yeah.
difficult to build up young boys. You need to motivate them, you need to protect them, you need to give them the right amount game time. And if you don't give the game time, that means that you're not showing that you trust on them, because I believe if there was a game here against Dundee, and the team was winning first half, I think 4 or 5 or 6 nothing,
Uh-huh.
and he never came on, and the boy was hurt because obviously in those kind of games he was expected to come on 10, 15, 20 minutes or so to get some game time, to blend in with the rest of the boys.
Yeah.
So if I say it's Celtic's fault, I don't want to say that, because that was we made the decision based on obviously what we thought was right, and
Uh-huh.
at the end of the day, Rocco, he had to make the decision himself, and
Yeah.
and he's an adult. Is a boy. He was a boy who could make that decision. Again, I was hurt when he left, and I'm sure Rocco was hurt.
Yeah.
But somehow someone was not hungry enough and determined enough to keep Rocco there.
I
And
think that's interesting.
if you have to if you have to point fingers, we are all men, and I live by the truth, and I made my feelings clear to the hierarchy of the club, that I asked them to please uh, evaluate him, not 100% as to evaluating, not as much as the other clubs are evaluating, but evaluate him at least 70% of what other clubs are evaluating him. And in my opinion, Rocco was not evaluated, not even 50% what other clubs
Wow.
were evaluating him. And I feel like that's what Rocco felt like. He was not getting the valuation what he was worth and what the other clubs were evaluating him,
You
and
know,
that's the reason I think he decided to leave Celtic.
yeah. No, that's very, very interesting. So a bit insight. And obviously that's your personal experience. So, we don't know personally ourselves, but certainly we've been on this channel and we've spoke a lot about development and pathways and improvements and what we can do so that guys like Rocco, who are talents, who, as you're saying, has been established by other clubs as having that talent, then what can we do to nurture them? Now, obviously, in the news, we've been getting linked with Paul Tisdale, who's looking to come in and do a recruitment and an overhaul, and a lot of that's around development. So we're hoping that as fans, that moving on, that someone like that coming in is going to have that sort of long-term planning, as you say, that other clubs had identified for the likes of your son. And I think that would be, no one will criticise Rocco's position, as you've said. You've given us a wee bit of insight to what it's like personally, where other clubs had shown more of a investment even in someone who they didn't have versus what we've got. And hopefully that's another thing that we as a club are going to be developing, that we're going to be changing. But hopefully Rocco goes on and does well. How's things been for him since post-life at Celtic down at Watford at the moment?
Well, I would say that he's doing very well. He started the pre-season because he was waiting too long, obviously, to get an answer from Celtic. So it ended up after the beginning of July. His contract expired 30th of June, and Watford had offered him a contract since beginning of June, but he was waiting for that last kind of news from Celtics. So ended up starting the preseason a little bit late with Watford. But as I say, the owner of the club, he thinks they told me they could not believe they got the boy from Celtic in that way so easy. So they believe so much. The club believes so much. The sporting director, actually, during this period of negotiation, Rocco was in Montenegro with me and his mom, sporting director, he flew from London to Italy to Milan to Tirana and drove to Montenegro to come and get him there. And Rocco says, obviously, give me my time because still was waiting for that last news from Celtic. So they were so hungry, and they have a proper project. Every day there is a tactician coach, a mental coach, nutrition working with him, and obviously the manager believes that he's got very good qualities, and they are giving him game time, enough game time right now. I believe he's going to get a lot of game time until the end of the season because they do have that project, and the whole club is working towards that goal, so they sold Asprilia, the boy who they sold, the Colombian, to Girona. I believe now the next project is Rocco and Watford and Udinese. They are joint owners. They work in this way. They identify the young boys. They work with them. They invest on them, and then they build them up to become a multi-million pound players. So in this way, there is a win-win situation if Rocco continues with the plan, But the club, hopefully Rocco continue to work as hard as he did until now, because if I am honest, he has done a lot of work, extra work, and the only reason he developed so good is because he worked always extra 1 hour, 2 hours a day, more than his own colleagues. So
it sounds exactly like another Vata that we know. That seems exactly, he's done exactly what you did. So he's got that same mentality.
But he has better big talent, though. His talent is he can play in every position up front, and every position he can score goals. And scoring goals is the most difficult thing in football. So he has a sense of scoring. He's fast. He's got good technique. Of course, he has to improve a lot in tactical side of the game because he's a young man. But as I say, if he keeps that hunger and that determination, there is nothing that can stop him to make it right at the top, So
And see, just to quickly back up before we finish off, just when I forgot to mention there, obviously at Celtic, you says you first approached and you spoke to Ange Postecoglou, and he essentially says, "Leave it to me." It was kind of just a general, "I'll take care of it." Ultimately, that wasn't to be the case. But then we got Brendan Rodgers coming in, and Brendan Rodgers has always had a reputation of being a guy who develops players, transforms players, and keeps them around. And again, maybe you'll be able to confirm if this was the case or not. Our understanding of what we were told as fans was that prior to him leaving, that Brendan Rodgers wanted to have 3 strikers at Celtic, which would have been Kyogo, Ida, and we also wanted to have one other, which would have been a younger player. And apparently the word was that was supposedly earmarked for Rocco. Is that true? And are you able to give us, was there ever a feeling that it was it too little too late, or did you feel that, did Brendan Rodgers, did you have any conversations with him? How was the difference between Rodgers chatting about Rocco and Postecoglou chatting about, was it about even, or did they feel that there was maybe more of a desire from one or the other?
Well, I met Ange once, and I told him I never come and see you again. He showed me the script. He showed me the plan. I says, good. That's all I wanted to know. Rocco is staying here. I says, and I'm happy that you have that kind of plan with Rocco. And obviously, until Ange was here, he had that plan. After Ange left, obviously, I was interested to find out if that is the case with Brendan, And Brendan is a friend of mine, obviously, and I had a long time. I met Brendan, and we remained friends, not best friends, but obviously, I have a lot of respect for him as a person, and of course as a manager as well. And I had meetings with Brendan, but they are different meetings, different times. At the beginning, I believe he was not happy at all with Rocco. and when he signed. So he was a little issues here and there about Rocco's timing, and obviously the Brandon was not happy. He's been with the first team in pre-season, then they sent him back to the B team. Rocco continued to grow and to develop, and obviously as a young man in life you also sometimes you make mistake, you know, and but most important thing, I could see that Rocco is a hard worker, he's developing, and he's doing well, you know. And then based on the hard work, you think that good thing is not a lazy boy, you know, because you could be a talent but you could be lazy, and that was not the case. And what you're saying is true. Brandon, he had Rocco on his top 3 strikers. That is true, you know. And but again, as I say, when it comes down to that kind of decision, I spoke to the top people at the club, and I says, if you give him what Rocco is happy, which is 75% of what the other clubs are offering, Rocco will be your player. And I wanted also Brandon to confirm that to me, that he, because I wanted to know if really the market now is that's what also Brandon think for Rocco. And but I never got that answer. Somehow was a little bit of situation that was unclear, you know. And eventually Celtic say no, and Rocco say, then if you no give me that what I think I'm worth, then I have to move on, you know.
No, and that's perfectly understandable. Obviously, players will have their own worth, their own self-worth, and they want that level of investment, not just in terms of buy-in and support from the club, but also ultimately what you're getting paid to do your job. So no one can say anything about that. It's a short career at football is, and you've got to make sure that the decisions you make and the environment you're in are the right ones for you.
I don't think that was because of the money, you know.
Yeah.
I think he felt undervalued. That's the reason he felt a little bit that they never evaluated him as much as he believed he has proved that he is evaluated, you know. And as we know that to sign a quality striker nowadays with Champions League qualities, because if you perform in Champions League level, you always look for Champions League qualities, because that's the only way you can compete. You cannot have Conference League standard to do well in Champions League, because that is never going to work. And in my opinion, Rocco's qualities are to become a Champions League player, you know. But if you work towards those qualities, you build up a player that he's going to do well in that level in a couple of years, and is going to become worth a lot more. So that's a kind of investment those clubs are doing, and Celtic are not doing, because they think there is a lot of talent that is born in Scotland, and there is lot of young boys who have Champions League qualities, but they need to be guided, they need to be treated in the right way, they need to be educated in the right way, they need to build them to become strong men, because the young boys cannot become strong men on their own, you know. And the motivation factor is very important. So everything starts from here, you know, and in general, in Scotland, they work a lot neck down, but everything starts from here, you know. And the young boys are suffering because they have talent, they have that kind of possibility to grow, but they need help. And then what do? You loan them out to lower clubs, and they lose their motivation, they lose their passion, they get injuries, and they disappear, you know. And you see many young boys.
Before there, Rudi, about Celtic obviously winning 5-0 at half time, and giving the younger generation a chance, bringing Rocco on there would have been an ideal chance. Now, we had Peter Grant on here, and Peter spoke about the substitutes in the game He says back when he was playing, you had 2 substitutes or 3 substitutes, and you were lucky if that was it.
Yeah. In my time at Celtic, there were 3 substitutes.
Yeah.
And there were 14 players on the bench.
Yeah.
We were a squad of 22, and the manager could keep only 14 players in the bench. You know,
Yeah.
so
if
but
you were on
now
the bench, you knew you were getting a chance. Nowadays, there's so many substitutes sitting there. You can bring on 5 of them, but they're not getting that opportunity. And I think that's where young players would become a bit demoralised. Obviously, sitting there, if Rocco's sitting there 5-0 at half time, he's thinking, I'm getting on here, I'm going to get an opportunity. And to not get that, it would be like a kick when you're down at a point, and I understand that.
Being a young man, you need to feel that, because if you don't feel that you earned it, I think I can see the ego and the selfishness, but he had proved that he had gone through those stages and he had earned to be part of those moments, you know. But he never got the opportunity. When you look at he scored 3 goals against San Marino under 21s. Last March, I think, he came home and he was the only Celtic striker who had scored goals in international duty. And he never appeared during that period until the end of the season, you know. And somehow I think it's all about management. It's all about having that strategy. And if you don't have the strategy, if you don't have the technical project for each player, not just, but every player has got different ingredient, different qualities. And then you recognize the players with that quality that can become a Champions League standard, Europa League standard, Scottish League standard. So, and then you work based on the qualities and the mentality, because if you don't have the quality, you cannot build up the players to become top. It's impossible. But if you have the quality and then you have the mentality there, I think it's a win-win situation. And on Rocco, I think he proved to everybody who ever worked with him in the youths and even B team and even first team, he has proven he has earned the respect of the senior players. You can ask Forrest what he thinks about Rocco. And you earn the respect. You earned by showing up every day in training, you know. You earn by showing up how you handle yourself in different situations. So based on that, I think there is a lot to be improved. But again, I don't want to point the finger whose fault is. I believe we were not good enough to keep Rocco here. Not just me, but in general, us as a Celtic family, we were not good enough to materialize the situation. So,
well, football works in strange ways, and obviously we wish Rocco all the best in his future career. And who knows, maybe at some point we'll maybe see him back in some capacity, whether it's playing against Celtic or indeed playing for Celtic. And
you
we'll
never
be
know.
Keeping an eye on his progress as it goes on.
For sure, I hope that was not a goodbye forever, you know.
No, so definitely.
He's a young man, and hopefully one day he'll come back and fulfill his mission.
Well, that's it. As he says, perhaps he'll come back and we'll see that in the fullness of time. That's one to keep an eye on. But in terms of the journey, this is the end of our journey for today. So I just want to thank you once again. Absolutely appreciate the time you've taken out your morning to come and speak to us about yourself, your son, and all things in between. And, you know, thanks again. Really, really appreciate that. As we say at the top of the show, make sure, you know, people watching this, if you want to know a wee bit more, check out Rudi's book that's out. It is a great read. And also as well, as we said, he's been on other platforms, appeared on A Celtic State of Mind, a lot more in detail. We've spoke a lot about football today. However, as we say, there's a very compelling and interesting backstory that we just scratched the surface on today with yourself and your trials and tribulations to leaving your home country. So I would advise any person watching this, if you want to know a bit more about the man behind the football, check out A Celtic State of Mind's chat with Rudi, because it's very, very interesting indeed.
And
Rudi,
buy the book.
and buy the book. Absolutely. So, Rudi, thank you very much again for taking the time. It's a beautiful day. The sun is shining, so I'm sure they'll get more things for yourself to get out there and enjoy it. So we will catch up with you again. And everybody watching us, make sure that you show the support for the channel, show the support to Rudi, give this a wee like, a wee share and subscribe up to the channel. So we'll be back with more Celtic content. Hopefully we'll have more similar guests to Rudi, players to come on and talk about everything football and Celtic. Until that time comes around, as always, we say take care of yourselves and of course, hail, hail.
Hail, hail.